Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's conversation is rooted in a simple but powerful truth. Black women have always been experts in our own lives. Trusting Black women is not just a title, it's a framework for how research should be imagined, conducted, and applied. When we say trust Black women, we're naming both a challenge and a commitment, especially within research spaces that have historically excluded us or our communities. Trusting Black women means valuing lived experience as knowledge, community as expertise, and care as methodology. This conversation is about shifting power. It's about who gets to ask the questions, who gets believed, and whose knowledge counts. We're joined today by researchers and thought leaders whose work embodies these principles and is actively shaping or reshaping what ethical and community centered research looks like. My name is Nea Richard. I am a research fellow here with SisterSong, and I will be moderating today's panel. So, hello. um, Today, I am honored to be joined by our amazing panelists, and we will kick off our conversation with some introductions. So, to my panelists, I ask that you provide us with your name, your organization, and if you could answer the question when thinking about SisterSong and research, how do you think about impact? So, again, that's name, pronouns, organization, and when you think about SisterSong and research, how do you think about impact? And Noelle, if you don't mind, could you kick us off?
Sure. Hi. Thank you, Nea, and good afternoon, everyone. It's so wonderful to see so many folks in the space with us today. And thank you for continuing to put your names and where you're coming from in the chat. It's just so wonderful to see all of the amazing folks here. My name is Dr. Noelle Spencer. I am research manager at SisterSong. And that's a really big question about how I think about impact with SisterSong. I think the thing that really comes to mind to me, especially when we're thinking about our research portfolio and the partnerships that we enter into, is so two things: is having deep intentional collaboration with everyone that we work with, and I'm always thinking about duty of care. So it's impact in a different way in terms of the impact that we have on communities. I know that impact can also mean, where does this research go? But my mind first went to, what is our impact on communities in terms of our impact where we want it to go? I hope that we are able to, really inform change. And that's something that I want to talk about more as we go. And I will, should I popcorn it, Nia, or do you want to assign the next person?
Popcorn works.
Okay, then I will popcorn to Monica.
Thank you, Noelle, and peace, everybody. It really is so great to be in community with everyone today. Thank you for joining us. And I'm so excited for this conversation. So again, my name is Monica Simpson. I'm the executive director of SisterSong. We are the national, seven-based national Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective, and we are also the anchor organization for the Trust Black Women campaign. When I think about SisterSong and research and impact, as a person who is not a researcher, but deeply intrigued by how research is used to shape narrative and to take stories and create powerful solutions through those stories, I see SisterSong's connection to research and impact, all of it being all about culture shift and shifting the culture, right? For folks to be able to see themselves differently, to be able to see themselves reflected, right? And ultimately, it is about moving people through those personal stories through a process that gets us closer to moving people towards action that creates the change that we want. We're going to hear a little bit more about this as we get into the conversation with those powerful experts that we've had the honor and privilege of working with. But for us, the storytelling aspect of this, and me as a creative and thinking about why SisterSong really wanted to put our energy and to put resources into moving this particular type of strategy, was definitely about how do we honor our stories as sacred? How do we honor our expertise that is deeply entwined in our stories in a way that allows us to really build bigger strategies and better wins for our community? So that's how I see impact. I think it's about shifting culture. I think it's about making sure our communities see themselves reflected and see themselves a part of this work. And I think that research provides a powerful tool to be able to blend those worlds together. So I am now going to pass it to my dear sis, who I have so much love and respect for, and I'm so excited to hear her today, Terri-Ann.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon from the East Coast and Happy New Year. It is such a pleasure to be able to start the year on this kind of note, which is a warm note, a positive note. And it's just nice to be in community, honestly. I love being on panels like this, mostly because I love being in anything that SisterSong has its stamp on. Terri-Ann Thompson, pronoun she, her. I'm a senior research scientist with Ibis Reproductive Health. And Monica said it so well in terms of what impact means and what SisterSong means, but I wanted to add three sort of power words when I think about SisterSong, the kind of impact that they give to our work as researchers. And the three words are trustworthy. They are a trusted source. And that gives a lot of credence, that gives a lot of validity to the work that we do, and quite frankly, a lot of relevance. The second is creativity. There is no shortage of creativity. If you've seen anything that SisterSong has put forward, you know that there is a lot of creativity that comes, it's almost in their bones, right? And as a researcher, when we have to do things that are very prescriptive. And so sometimes it's really, really nice to be able to break out of that and get into a creative vibe and flow. And the last thing I wanted to say is that the word that comes to me is bold, right? There is no point at which, as a researcher working with SisterSong, that you are not pushed to go beyond, right? Like what you came in to think about, the way you thought it should go, the way it looks like it's going, right? Like you are always being pushed into a bold new direction. So I wanted to leave you with those words as you think about impact and what can lead to impactful change, right? Culture change doesn't happen with boring, non-bold, right? Like non-trusted stuff. So that's what I wanted to leave for you. And I'm gonna popcorn to Cicely, who I had the pleasure of working with on the TBW, the Trust Black Women study.
Thank you, Terri-Ann. Hi, everyone. My name is Cicely Paine. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently the Director of People and Organizational Culture with Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation. At the time of the study, though, I was the Community Engagement Manager at Feminist, so have had a couple different roles there. When I think about SisterSong and impact where research is concerned, I really kind of think about two things. One, echoing a bit of what Terri-Ann was saying, SisterSong being really like a leading voice in the reproductive justice movement. I think really gives a lot of credence to like any sort of research efforts that are happening. And so really being able to house this work under the SisterSong umbrella, I think really does give it like a certain weight that like maybe having it housed elsewhere may not necessarily do. And then the other thing that I think about is how we were really able to, and I'll talk more about this later, of course, but how we were really able to bring community in space together with one another. The ways that folks were able to connect with one another, share their stories, was just like a really beautiful thing to see and experience. And I think that it's really uh, that would not have come together in the same way without that partnership of SisterSong and Ibis, and then like the connection with us at Feminist as well. So yeah, those are the ways that I see the impact of this research. And I will pass to Victoria.
Thanks, Cicely, and thank you all. I feel so warm being in this space, which is really a wonderful feeling. Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Nichols. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Senior Project Director for Free the Pill, which is a project of Ibis Reproductive Health. And when I think about SisterSong and research, oh wow. I think about redefining and redesigning research with community and culture in mind. Um, SisterSong to me is an organization that is at the forefront of culture change, and intersecting that into research is a way to transform what research actually is when you're really bringing in the cultural element of that and you're centering community. And I think part of the impact that that has is building evidence that tells important stories, but stories that are important to those that have lived experience, which I think is not something that always happens when research is conducted. So, centering the culture, centering the community, and centering the lived experience, and then sharing that back out to people who can benefit the most from it.
Thank y'all so much. I don't know if you can feel the energy in the chat, y'all, but we are about to have an amazing panel. I said it once, I'll say it again. I'm honored to be on the Zoom with y'all. I cannot wait to continue this conversation. So thank you all for the introductions and allowing folks to get to know a little more about you. And also thank you for grounding us in how you think about impact, particularly through SisterSong's approach to research from your personal experience. What's coming through clearly is that impact isn't just about outcomes, right? It's about intentional process, shifting culture and power narrative, and accountability to community. So I want to build on that by zooming in more deeply on the framework that undergirds this work. And so I'd like to have a conversation with our executive director, Monica, and ask you, what does trusting Black women mean in the context of research and public health decision making? And then you are on mute. So
there I be. All right. Thank you for that. So when I think about Trust Black Women and what it means in context to research, I have to zoom out for a second for those who may be new to understanding what the Trust Black Women campaign is also really about, right? And I think it's important to root and ground us in that, and then talk about how that then gave us the ability to think about using this framing as a way to connect to research in a very intentional way. So in 2010, which was the height of what the media was deeming the war on women in this country, we saw an onslaught of abortion restrictions. There was all of this crazy racialized tension and propaganda tactics being thrown into the media at that time, mostly around abortion. And we can see where that ultimately has led us, right, in this political moment. But at that time, there was a very specific campaign that took hold in Georgia and spread its way across the country. And the campaign was targeted at Black women specifically and their reproductive decision making. And there was a group that decided to create a narrative that the most, every time I say it, it blows my mind. But the most dangerous place in this country was really about seeing Black women having too many abortions, right? And calling Black children an endangered species, right? And putting Black children's faces on billboards in this country, in Georgia, in New York, in different places. And so even when I'm trying to say the words now, it just it brings so much anger to me, but it was a blatant attack on Black women, on our ability to make our own decisions about our bodies, our families, and our futures. And so the response that was created at that time, led by SisterSong and 9 other Black women-led RJ organizations in 2010, was to create a counter narrative that says if you're going to call our children an endangered species, then you are absolutely wrong, and you're going to trust Black women to make our own decisions and to stand firm in our own self-determination. And so that counter narrative helped to lead all of the work and the organizing to get those billboards down, to push past legislation that was trying to hit state houses in Georgia and across this country. And it gave us a landing space to be able to start to build across sectors and Black women on understanding their direct connections to reproductive justice, in particular around abortion access in this country. And so that started in 2010, and the Trust Black Women campaign has now grown to be a national campaign, again, working across different sectors of Black women across different movements, industries, helping to create a united front of Black women working together and to be able to lock arms when necessary when the attacks on our reproductive freedom hit our communities. And so as we were standing in this frame of Trust Black Women, we had taken this frame into Black Lives Matter movements, into helping people understand voting rights, all of these different things. And what we realized was that there was a particular area in particular around research that we felt was going to be an interesting and necessary connection for this frame as well. And so we started to get an understanding of what this could look like in 2014, whenever we conducted our first ever community-based participatory research project in partnership with then the Center for Reproductive Rights on looking at maternal health in the South and why the rising rates of maternal mortality were starting to take hold in our communities. And so us having that experience and seeing the impact of how we led that community-based participatory research project, being directly in community, I still tell people to this day, being able to hear people in real time and give people a safe space to talk about their experiences forever changed me as a leader, right? I've been doing this work for decades at this point, and those were some of the most transformative conversations I have ever had. Right. And so after having that experience, we wanted to figure out how we could do more. Where were the gaps? Where were there opportunities to take this frame of Trust Black Women, to center the experiences of Black women, to center what was needed and what we knew was important for Black women in this country, and bring that to the forefront, and finding the right partners that would allow us to move in the frame of reproductive justice in a creative frame that would give us powerful impact, right, for our communities. So that's how we kind of came to this work, right, and the trajectory that got us here. And when thinking about trying to understand what was happening around Black women's reproductive needs in this country, what it meant for us to think about what were the gaps in education, the gaps in service delivery, all of that really led to the ability for us to build partnerships with folks like Ibis and all of the different partners that we were able to build through our community advisory board to bring this type of research to life and to root it in real stories, to root it in real-time experiences, and to root it in a cultural method, again, that gives us the ability to make sure that folks could not only see themselves reflected, but that could give people clear pathways to do the work that they knew was really necessary for their own community. So that's how we brought all of that together. And now and I know we're about to hear how all of that kind of like opened up into these different projects, but that's what got us in this work. And I will say this last piece really quickly. I'm very grateful for us being able to work with Black women, for us to work with Black scientists and researchers that allowed us to completely be ourselves. We did not have to water down not one thing. We didn't have to code switch or change our language. We were able to do this in a way that kept us in integrity of our own work, our own mission, our own frame, that allowed this work, I think, to be some of the most transformative research work that I've seen, right? In a way that really has helped to move the needle and move the conversations with Black women and in the field of research, in my humble opinion. So that's what got us here, Nea.
I'm so grateful for that answer. And that was such a powerful response. I think it's going to serve really well as grounding for the remainder of our conversation, and just to really get an understanding of how we got to this Trust in Black Women campaign and the call to the work. So thank you so much for kicking us off with just what does it mean to trust Black women? So we have heard from Monica about the values and the meaning behind Trust Black Women, right? Now let's turn to how those values have shaped the work itself. Trust Black Women is a community-based participatory research collaboration between SisterSong, Ibis Reproductive Health, and Feminist Center, carried out in partnership with Black-led organizations across the South. The study was intentionally designed, right, I'm not gonna do too much because we're getting ready to get a little more information, right? So let me not. But the study was designed with intent, with community at the forefront. So to bring that collaboration to life, I want to take the time to talk to two of our panelists who are partners in this work, so that they can speak to what it looked like in practice, how research was shaped, how the partnership functioned, and what this approach made possible. So we're going to kick it off with Terri-Ann. Terri-Ann, can you walk us through how the Trust Black Women study came together?
Sure. So as a reminder, in terms of the timing, the Trust Black Women study is a study that was funded by the Society of Family Planning And it was launched in 2018. It's a collaboration between Ibis Reproductive Health and SisterSong. And it is a community-led research study that brings into sharp focus the reproductive experiences and concerns of Black people living in the South. So it's important to flag here the community-based participatory research framework in thinking about how it came about, because that framework means that there was partnership on all aspects of the study, right? So it means that there was joint decision-making from the get-go, from inception. The idea was an idea that we came together and brought forward. We wrote the grant together, we applied for the grant together, we worked through the budget together, and we continued to work together through dissemination, through implementation, through analysis, and all the way through dissemination. It means joint decision-making. It means an iterative approach to leadership, and it means an acknowledgement of capacity and strength at every point of the way. I will also say that one thing that some other pieces that come to mind that I do want to flag that are inherent to the community-based participatory research framework are, one, practicing listening, right? This is particularly important because there's so many different interest holders. When you do this kind of work, there's not just the research and the community organization, which is SisterSong in this case. There's also the research board that we built. There's also the community partners, and it's also the participants, right? So there's listening on several fronts. There's flexibility, also a tenet of doing this work. It's flexibility in terms of timeline, and it's also flexibility in terms of processes. There's a centering of the community as well as the community needs, and there's giving equal value to research as well as to non-research materials. And so I say that to just set up some of the flavorings of this kind of work that make it inherently different than just a research project, right? Which involves getting an IRB or an ethics approval, implementing the study, analyzing it, and moving it forward to an academic space or holder for the evidence piece of it. So I just wanted to set that up as the beginning. I have a couple slides that I would love to walk us through, Nea, if that's possible. And I start with this slide at the front, which is a slide that I took directly from our, we have the honor of, one of the first spaces that we got to debut this work was at the Society of Family Planning. It was one of the plenary options. And so this slide is one of my favorite. You unfortunately can't see the beautiful Black face that's on there, but I promise you, it was just a very powerful image that was on the slide. And this is one of the quotes that is directly from one of the stories that we collected, which is, we can make this story one that's more powerful, right? That was really the intent. You could see that even from the participants, and Cicely will speak more to this, that they really wanted the data to showcase their stories. And I hope throughout the sort of tenure of working on this study that we have really tried to amplify that, both the methodology, the partnership, as well as the stories themselves. So just to walk us through really quickly, I want us, if we could go to the next slide. I just wanted to highlight here who was on the team. So I had the privilege, it really fits as one of the highlights of my career, to be able to work in this Black-led, Black-centered research project. On screen are a few of the members of our team at the time. So you have, in terms of the research team, you have Monica, myself, and Yves Devet, who no longer works at Ibis Reproductive Health, but is still in the mix. And then we have several members of our research board that are pictured on screen. It was our research board was a mix of leaders, community leaders, as well as just other leaders in the space of sexual and reproductive health, but primarily set in the context that we were investigating, which is in the South, specifically North Carolina and Georgia. Importantly, we thought it was really important to leverage the thought leadership of Black women through the research board, as well as through the Trust Black Women Partnership. We were very intentional about who our community partners were. As Cicely mentioned, Feminist is a part of the Trust Black Women campaign and leadership. And so all of our partners had some connection to the Trust Black Women campaign. We also, at the very beginning, made sure that we established guidelines and expectations, both in terms of responsibilities and time for everyone who was involved, not just at the beginning in terms of implementation, but all the way through to dissemination. So in terms of the next slide, I just wanted to highlight really quickly what the aims of the study are. These are them. There are about 3 aims that we had. The first was to describe the current reproductive health concerns of Black women. The second was to understand the range of factors that influence reproductive health decision-making. And the third was to generate strategies for engaging communities of Black women on reproductive health issues. And to support these aims, if we go to the next slide, what we did was we collected data through focus group discussions and in-depth interviews. And this is how you could actually qualify to be a part of the research study. So you were eligible if you spoke English, if you identified as Black or African American, you identified as a woman aged 18 to 49, if you are a resident of Georgia or North Carolina for 2 years. And these are just other research pieces here to talk about the fact that, you know, we followed all the guidelines, we recorded, we transcribed verbatim, and thematically coded. Next slide. So the real test of our study is really our deliverables. And I want to leave you with this as the sort of the real takeaway from the work that we did. We wanted to create products that we believed would actually increase awareness, that would make the experiences of Black people in the South accessible to the community, as well as to other interest holders, such as funders, researchers, allies, as well as policymakers. And so we chose a number of different avenues to do that. We use videos, fact sheets, presentations, and social media. So on the screen, I'll start with the next slide, which is actually a screenshot, which is, you know, when I saw the screenshot initially, I was like, man, I've aged. Like, I look real young in this photo, and that was only a few years ago. But here we are doing our plenary during COVID times, the thick of COVID. Cecilia, look at your picture. This is 2020 or 2021, I believe, one of those years. But this is one of our first sort of moments highlighting this work and really bringing to researchers to highlight the power of work, community-based participatory work. On the other slide, I highlight the video, which was our actual first product. And this video was spearheaded by SisterSong. And what's a really neat feature of this video is we created the script of this video based on the qualitative interviews and the focus group discussions. So everything that you hear here is not fiction, it is fact. It came directly from the work that we did. And it is powerfully narrated by a number of actors and is a full through and through effort of SisterSong, with the researchers, myself and Elizabeth, and the research board playing a supporting role. But I really do want to give the props to SisterSong for this amazing video. On the next screen, I wanted to show you how we've tried to bolster some of our, or not bolster, but rather to bolster the research evidence on disparities, as well as the impact of racism on health. And so I highlight here our work with health affairs, as well as op-eds that were crafted by myself and Monica Simpson. And on the screen that follows, we highlight the podcast as well as other interviews that we did to highlight, and I love the title of this paper, Racism Runs Through It, just the ways in which racism impacts the reproductive health experience of Black people living in the South. And then finally, we wanted to support the advocacy efforts of reproductive justice organizations by providing narratives to be used to illustrate the harms of policies and practices on Black women's knowledge, as well as their experience with sexual and reproductive health programs. And so on this final screen, if you go to the next screen, I highlight here, no, the screen, one screen before, I highlight here our manuscript. We also love funny, amazing titles, but it's called The Miseducation, which is our paper that highlights some of the inadequacies, the harms of the inadequacies of sex education in the South. So I hope you get a flavoring, both what sort of led to the study, as well as what makes it different, what sets it apart, and the ways in which we've really tried to set the tone in terms of what dissemination could look like with a community-based participatory research study. And now I'll pass it on to Cicely.
Yeah, thank you so much for showcasing the level of intention that went into that work, and so much for just even getting to see the products that came out of all the work that you all put in. So Cicely, the Feminist Center was an integral partner in the TBW study, and I'll reference the study TBW, Trust Black Women, from here on for the audience. But what made you say yes in participating in this research?
Yeah, Feminist Center has been in long-term partnership with SisterSong and with Ibis Reproductive Health as research partners. With SisterSong is really more on the kind of like organizing advocacy side, and with Ibis, our work was primarily around clinic-based research, and so this study really kind of like shifting both of those relationships, those partnerships, to engage in work that really was like bringing the community that we're all interested in, Black women, together to talk about these experiences in reproductive health care. Felt like a very easy yes for Feminist.
I love that. Once you all were engaged, what was the experience like for you as a community partner?
Yeah, it was really great. As a community partner, it was really nice for us to, because we have space available for folks to gather. We have connections with, already have community connections as well. It felt like a very natural fit for us to be a community partner on this research. I think inviting folks from the community into not just the research itself, but also into our space really allowed for folks to feel comfortable engaging in research. Um, uh, you know, there were lots of people who may not necessarily having engaged in research opportunities before, or if they had, it probably looked and felt very different than what we did in the Trust Black Women study. And so really being able to create a space that felt like warm and welcoming for people to participate in this research, like was felt really good for feminists to be able to offer that. I think too, along those same lines, there were definitely folks who came into the space who maybe were like a little apprehensive, maybe not necessarily like knowing what to expect. Um, and the way that the study was created, and sort of the guidance that we received in how to implement the pieces of it to collect data, I think really made the participants feel at ease, and be really open, like really open in sharing their stories, which is exactly what we were hoping for. Um, so that was also a really great thing to see. As a part of the sort of the protocol, the participants were using pseudonyms, and definitely by the time that the I think we held 4 different focus groups. I think the majority of those, by the time folks were finishing up, like they were sharing their real names and contact information. I'm like, it would actually be cool to like follow up and see like, are these people still in touch? That would be interesting. But yeah, it was like a true testament um to um the the partners, all of the partners who were involved in creating the study, and so like the trust that that the partners had in one another, and then also like the trust that the community had in all of us to be vulnerable and open in that way to share their stories. So yeah, lots of really really great experiences coming from being a community partner there.
I love that. There's so much energy just radiating off of you thinking about your experience and y'all's experience on this part on this campaign. Sorry. Um, we have some questions popping up in the chat, and we will save them for you all towards the end. So really grateful for you all sharing your experience about the TBW study. And we're gonna take a second to talk to some of our other panelists. So I appreciate you both. So, a core tenet of reproductive justice is the right to parent, not to parent, and parent in safe and sustainable communities, which means having access to tools people need to make informed decisions about their bodies and their lives. Building on our earlier conversation about research partnerships and community centered work, I want us to turn towards another collaboration that puts those principles in action. So next we'll talk to our panelists, Monica and Victoria, about Free the Pill, where SisterSong serves on the steering committee for the effort alongside a broad coalition of partners in the campaign that brings together research, advocacy, and community leadership. So we will kick this off with Monica. Monica, why did SisterSong join Free the Pill?
Wow, I mean, first of all, I will say that this campaign, Free the Pill, has been one that has been really powerful for the reproductive justice movement. I think reproductive health rights and justice movements, right? And it's in a landscape where so much of our work, we're in such a deep reactionary mode all the time, really working hard to combat, all the things that they're trying to take away from us, remove from us, put up bans against, right? In particular around abortion and so many of the other things that we see. This was an opportunity for us to think proactively. It was an opportunity for us to think about the future in a way that I think is really important to us in this work that seems to always keep us in, again, in this deep reactionary mode. And it gave us an opportunity to shape and frame a campaign from a reproductive justice framework that was very much welcomed, right? When thinking about how to shape this work and thinking about what does it mean to move an over-the-counter oral contraceptive in this country and who needed to be centered in that conversation, whose experiences needed to be centered. It was just really important for us to know that we had an organization that was committed to centering that in the way that this campaign was set up. And it was just really important for us to be in the room. And so Victoria will tell you all more about the actual trajectory of what this work has looked like. But that is why we were in the space. And that's SisterSong's perspective. But I also want to share my own personal perspective as to why this particular campaign for me is one that I was so drawn to. I grew up in the rural South, right? And in the rural South, we know where all the issues lie around what is accessible for us, what information we get, what education we get around our bodies. And I grew up in a place that was an abstinence only education centered place. There was no comprehensive sex education. There was so much stigma around sex and bodies. And I grew up in a church because that was kind of like my foundation for all things social justice in this, in my growing up. I grew up in a church where almost every young woman, girl, was pregnant before graduating high school, right? And so I was like, it is obvious that we are having sex. Okay, it is happening, but we do not have access to any information about ways that we can think about our futures, ways that we can think about being safer, like all of these things. And I wish that there was, some of the work that we now get the opportunity to do. I wish that that was present for me in my Union County, North Carolina small town, because I just think about how the future of so many folks could potentially look different, right? And so I brought a very personal story to this as a young person who was really trying to navigate keeping my body safe, thinking about the future that I wanted to create for myself, but not having any resources, not having any support around how to create those pathways for myself. So I know that stories like mine were deeply intertwined in thinking about, what the trajectory of this campaign was and how we ultimately got to where we are now, right? And moving forward with that. So we wanted to be there because we knew that our experiences, we knew that the expertise of reproductive justice leaders needed to be centered in something that was proactive and something that we knew would be a huge benefit for us in thinking about how there was just this crazy shrinkage and removal of so many of our necessary social supports and all the things that we need for our lives. This was an opportunity to shift the game and to shift the culture, and to think again about our futures in a very intentional way. So I just wanted to make sure I added my personal story up in there, Victoria, because being a part of this campaign has given me the ability to uplift that story, to talk about that, and how we organize and advocate for this particular campaign.
Thank you for that. Also spotlight on, bringing these things back to our own whys and our own communities, and just highlighting where we can all grow. So happy to be proactive. Victoria, can you give us some more context and history on Free the Pill, how it came together, and why working in a coalition has been so central in this effort?
I'm happy to. And it's always so amazing to hear Monica talk about this work because she brings so much of that lived experience into this. And that's why RJ leaders have been so critical to this work because we need that lived experience to inform all of the work that we're doing. I'm happy to talk about Free the Pill. It's a project of Ibis Reproductive Health that involves a public facing campaign and a large coalition of about 275 plus members, reproductive justice leaders, youth advocates, providers and provider associations, researchers, and more that are all committed to bringing birth control pills over the counter in the US. The work started back in 2004, and it was originally called the Oral Contraceptives Over the Counter Working Group. And that was a smaller group of providers, researchers, and reproductive justice leaders who wanted to just start to figure out whether an over-the-counter pill was possible in the US. It was happening, and available birth control pills over the counter in over 100 countries. But the US system is different. We have more barriers to care in terms of accessing care that disproportionately impacts communities of color. And we also have this historical context, especially around reproductive health, where there was coercion, there's issues of coercion that continue. There was issues of experimentation on Puerto Rican women and Black women to inform the field of gynecology and the birth control pill. So there's a lot of historical context also that impacts people and communities' trust in our healthcare system. So that context is also really important to have when you're trying to change policy, move systems to make things more equitably accessible. Coalitions are really a wonderful and helpful tool for bringing together people with different lived experience, professional experience, languages, all of that into a space to share expertise, to share knowledge, to disagree about strategy, to help inform best practices. And the Free the Pill Coalition serves as a community to bring together all of those experiences and expertise to help shape and inform not only the research that we do, but also the advocacy and movement building work that we do. And reproductive justice partners, particularly SisterSong, was really critical in ensuring that our coalition was grounded in reproductive justice values. And for us, that means centering the communities that experience the most barriers to accessing contraception and who would benefit the most from an over-the-counter birth control pill. So we didn't want this work to just be, yay, we're bringing a birth control pill over the counter in the US. It's going to be easier to get for people who already have access. That's great, but that's not the goal. The goal is to make sure that the communities that have the most barriers to access in the prescription model because the cost of the product or the need to get a provider appointment, the need to take off time from work or school to get to the appointment, childcare, et cetera, the communities that are really grappling with all those challenges on top of life, that those communities are centered in our work. So that was something that Monica, SisterSong, many other reproductive justice partners really helped ensure that we were focusing on that at every step of the way, asking questions about safety and effectiveness for the community, asking questions about how do we make this affordable for people? What are the challenges that are going to come about when people are trying to understand or read the label for this type of product? All of those questions helped shape and inform our approach and our strategy for this, and ultimately helped us get Opill, which is the first ever over-the-counter birth control pill approved in the US in 2023. Now it's on shelves nationwide. Anyone can go and pick it up off the shelf. And this was a movement-driven win. It was driven by a coalition and driven by reproductive justice leaders.
And let's not skip over that big win. Congratulations and thank you. I think both are great in that term. So grateful for the work and the commitment to the work, and the expansiveness of what that commitment looks like. I think one of the themes that's been very common amongst this entire panel is intention. So very grateful for the work that you've done with Free the Pill and for just the collaboration and all the things. So thank you. We have some questions again popping up in the chat, so we will come back and ask those a little later. So we're gonna switch over once more. We've talked about collaboration, coalition, and how reproductive justice values shape research and practice. I want us to shift now to one of SisterSong's current research efforts that really brings those commitments together. SisterSong has a long history of community-led research, and that legacy continues through its work with the Reproductive Health Experiences and Access Study. So to talk more about the work, I want to bring in SisterSong's research manager, Dr. Noelle Smith, who has been leading SisterSong's engagement work with RIA and the Community Advisory Board. And then we will also continue the conversation with our ED, Monica Simpson. So Noelle, Dr. Spencer, can you talk more about SisterSong's role in the RIA study and why it matters for community organizations, Black women-led community organizations, to be deeply engaged in this research?
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's been so fun to see all of the questions coming in the chat as folks have been talking. So really looking forward to the Q&A that we'll have after this. But yes, great question. So as a bit of background for anyone on the call who's not familiar with the Reproductive Health Experiences and Access, or RIA study, which is what we call it. The study, and I'm just going to give a brief overview, includes a large national survey, interviews with a very small subset of the survey respondents. So we have about 50,000 survey respondents, and we will do about 30 interviews. So very, very small. We also did case studies in 13 of our focal states, several of which overlapped with the focal states of SisterSong. And the purpose of the study is to assess how the Dobbs ruling has affected reproductive health access, experiences, and outcomes for people assigned female at birth living in those 13 focal states, and again in the national sample, so across the country. And it's really truly been a joy to be part of this study, and involved in the collaboration with the Urban Institute, which is a social policy institute in DC, and the Real Lab at UW-Madison. So we have really been new and interesting in our collaboration because of the types of organizations that we are. So that's been a really exciting piece of this too. Our focus as SisterSong, though, has been on the entire study, but specifically on community engagement, in particular through our work to recruit an incredible community advisory board of 15 passionate, engaged experts on the topics of the RIA study. So the RIA study, again, covers a lot of reproductive health experiences, including abortion, including contraception, including coercion in medical settings around all of those topics. So really runs the gamut. And we were looking for people who had deep experience and deep community ties in our 13 focal states to talk about these issues and to really make sure too in the work of the study that we were remaining accountable to people. So the CAB is the community advisory board of the CAB is not just there as a rubber stamp. They are very much involved in the research process, and are part of giving feedback just in the same way that all of the people on the research team are giving feedback on all of the different steps of the research that we're doing. So it's really been a collaboration, as close to iteration as possible. I will say with research, it moves at very interesting speeds, especially around, when things are funded. So we were unfortunately not able to have the CAB in place right when we started. Ideally, we would have, but once we were able to, again, find all of these incredible individuals, they have been involved since then, all the way through to dissemination, which is one of our big 2026 projects. And again, that's really the ideal way to conduct community-based participatory research, or CBPR, which is all of the research that we conduct at SisterSong. I really feel that some of the greatest strengths that SisterSong brings to research collaborations overall is the unwavering focus on collaboration and service to and with our communities. Across our focal states, yes, but across the nation and increasingly across the globe as well. Oh, and yes, I am explaining the reproductive health experiences and access study. Thank you for that question. SisterSong truly is a collective. It was founded as such and has never wavered from that vision and the active work of building and holding community. And we are making sure as the research team that that same vision and that same structure is reflected in the work that we do. So I also want to go back quickly to something that Terri-Ann mentioned at the beginning of the panel, which is the focus on creativity. I came out of academia, which looks at and handles research a little bit differently than community-based organizations. And working with SisterSong has really shown me that sharing research results can be even more creative and accessible in ways that I never really realized. So I was already working at that intersection and interested and committed to that. But what SisterSong has shown is that there really are no bounds to how creative one can be. So outside of just creative research methods, we're really focused on creative dissemination methods as well, and making sure that everyone involved in our research and everybody interested in it can, yes, dive into the peer-reviewed papers if they would like to, but can also pull up a YouTube video or an Instagram reel or a short, and also be engaged with research and increasingly with the community members that we're working with. And that's been a really exciting addition. I'm not sure that I answered all of the question here, so did I hit everything?
You did. And just to reiterate to the chat, the question was talking about SisterSong's role and why it's important for SisterSong to be a part of this work and be engaged in research. So thank you for that. Monica and Noelle, this next question is for the both of you. Looking ahead, what are some of your hopes for the impact of research coming out of SisterSong, both in terms of how it's used and how it reshapes research relationships more broadly?
Monica, do you want to start? Okay. Awesome. Well, I really quickly, I see research as a form of storytelling, especially because I do have a preference for qualitative. I do both. And even quantitative research is a type of storytelling too. Overall, I think research is storytelling in a different way. And as researchers, we're facilitators and stewards of other people's stories, whether that comes to us through numbers or through different types of surveys, or through focus groups or through sitting down with people, the creative methods I've talked about. However we get the data that is the story is a part of that storytelling process. And it's a really beautiful relationship, but it also demands a really high level of care and respect, especially because SisterSong is such a known organization. What has been really powerful, interesting, and meaningful to me coming into this organization is how much trust people come in. So the Trust Black Women piece, people, especially in our focal states, will respond to the research asks for participants, sometimes without really reading what we're asking about, because they're excited that SisterSong is asking. So that means for me as the researcher, it is even more important to make sure that we're handling everything that we do with just the utmost level of care, which we already would have. But again, just knowing that people are coming with that expectation of trust is so powerful. So I hope really that we'll continue to be good stewards of these stories. I know that we will, but that is one of my big hopes for the future. We know that stories are what moves people to shift and to change and to grow, just largely. And I really hope that we're able to contribute to dismantling stigma and challenging harmful narratives through our research efforts. I also hope that we can continue to be an example of how important it is for community-based organizations to lead research studies and to collaborate with other partners, especially partner organizations of different types. So not just community-based organizations, but universities, just different types of groups that are interested in and passionate about research, and passionate about RJ research specifically. I also hope that the impacts of our research will be far-reaching, that the evidence that we contribute to the wider discourse can support culture shift and advocacy efforts to further the efforts of all of us in the RJ movement to really build a world where everyone's human rights are recognized and respected. Those are my hopes.
I'm dreaming with you, hoping with you. Monica?
I knew I wanted Noelle to go first because there's not much else to say, right? First of all, y'all, in case you don't already know this by this conversation and how it's flowed today, we are really, really honored and we feel truly blessed to have Dr. Noelle and Nea on the SisterSong team and leading this work for us. They are magical, brilliant Black women, and I'm just very grateful for their leadership and their contributions. And so for me, when I think about the future, it's like giving them the opportunity to continue to be the brilliant, magical people that they are, for them to be able to have the resources and the space to be able to ask the hard questions, to figure out what things we need to do to fill certain gaps. Like I want them to be able to move with as much freedom and creativity as possible, is a huge goal for me, right? And for this to be a space they continue to grow in their leadership in that way, and for them to continue to to shift the ways that we're thinking about research. I also think that I wasn't the biggest fan of research. I wasn't. I want to be real honest. I was just like, I'm a creative person. I am a cultural person. And so I thought that research for a long time was just so boxy, right? And I've seen the light. These Black women on this call have helped me see the light, right? And the importance of how research really does help to undergird and lift and support the work that we are doing, and that there are so many different ways of doing research. I felt like I had a very blinder, focused way of thinking about research, and that's just not the case. And so my hope is that SisterSong continues to be an example of what it looks like to push beyond what society or what history has shown us that research is about, and that there are bigger ways for us to think about how to do this work of research. So I'm excited about what's possible with that. And at the end of the day, we are a movement building organization, and we believe in the power of our culture. And the way that we connect with our culture is to help them see themselves reflected, to help them see themselves seen in this work, that they are not on the outside of it, but their lived experiences and their needs and all of that is deeply intertwined in the work that we do. And it's why we do what we do. And my goal is for research to be another way for our communities to find their voice, to find their connection to this work that moves them to action. We are at a time right now, y'all, I don't want to get on a pedestal. We know what we're up against in this world. And what is important for us to know is that organizations like SisterSong, like Feminist, like Ibis, like all the folks who we've connected with and we've built partnerships with, it is our duty in this time to make sure that we are moving our people towards action, and that we are moving in a way collectively that builds power, that helps us change the conditions of this world. And the only way that we understand what people are dealing with, the impact of those things, we got to make sure that research is at the table. We got to make sure they have a seat at the table, and that they have the resources to be able to help us do the work and the running that we got to do in the organizing field. So my goal, my last thing is that we don't see research as a siloed piece of our movement's work, that we see it as an integral part, as an important part of how we do this, and that we always got to have a seat at the table for our researchers to make sure that we are doing this work in a way that is going to make the most impact, right, happen for our community. So that's what I'm excited about in the future. And for all of you who are on this call, all almost 200 something of y'all has been with us today, right? That we are finding new ways to do this work that builds more power.
I love that. And I'm grateful to be under your leadership as well. So I'm excited to continue to break down the silos and all the things, bring everybody into the research. So as we move into the final part of our conversation, I want to open the space back up and welcome all of our panelists back to think collectively about what it takes to do this work right now in this climate. This is about practice and pressure and possibility and how people are brought into research and how the current political landscape is shaping the work and what RJ-centered research needs to look like moving forward. So my first question, and you all can answer it as you please, is when you think about inviting people into the space of research, what does a good invitation look like? And how has that changed based on what communities have asked for?
No, we want to get to the questions in the chat, so maybe I'll just answer really quickly, which is to say, we miss a lot of things in terms of the research space. And sometimes I think we've seen there's been a history of folks in the research space producing evidence with limited utility, right? So when we don't work in partnership with communities, with advocates, with other interest holders, we miss things and sometimes we cause unintended harm. So at Ibis, I know I can speak for my organization, we center principles partnership. And as much as possible, what that means is an invitation that is starting from a place of jointness. That's joint thinking, that's joint implementation, that's joint dissemination. And I love that Victoria put this in, which is it's joint disagreement too. So I really want to put that, folks, my AirPods just died, so hopefully you didn't miss me, but I really want you to be thinking about the word joint in all, right? In the full spectrum of things, from agreeing and working together to dissenting as well. That is all a part of what it means to partner and all a part of what we believe is a piece of the invitation.
Yeah, I'll just quickly answer. I know we're getting to the chat, but I wasn't going to say something super differently from you, Terri-Ann. What really came to mind was just making sure that everything that we do is coming from the community in some way, recognizing that especially in community-based organizations, a lot of the people who work there are so deeply involved in the community that might look a little bit different. So I think that's something that we are still learning, especially as we manage a portfolio that is partially coming from our organization and partially built on these collaborations with other organizations that are maybe not as deeply embedded in community. Just making sure that everything that we do is something that community members want at the end of the day.
And I'm happy to add on to that. I don't personally conduct any research, and I'm not a researcher, but have observed many of the things and the ways that researchers on this panel invite other people into research. And a couple of things that I would highlight from those observations is thinking about how to invite people into research in a way that meets them where they are. So thinking about trust, how do we build trust so that people can honestly share what they want to prioritize in research? That's a part of the work. How do we get creative about our approach to research, to building research, to meet people where they're at, to ensure that they can engage in it? How do you build practices to hold research accountable to truly benefiting the people that it's aiming to serve and the communities and partners that you're working with?
Thank y'all so much for answering that question. We're gonna do a bit of okay, we'll do a few questions from the chat. So this first one says that they really appreciate and admire the incredible work that's going on in this space. And this individual would like to learn more about how you all maintain your motivation and your passion to keep this work going when policies keep changing.
That's a big question, but I'm gonna say something that sounds really cheesy. It is all about the people you work with. I think the truth is you get a lot of energy from folks that you are in the fight with, whether you are directly partnered with them or just walking, fighting, working alongside them. And that is, I believe, one of the beauties of the movement that we work in in terms of like a family planning movement. I really have appreciated that piece of it. And it's what's kept me going, is the point.
I think for me, what has kept me going in this process has been that I have been able to bring all parts of myself into it. Like I don't have to keep, the fullness of who I am. Like I don't have to compartmentalize that. Because I think that's just how intentional we have been about setting up how we want to do research, how we want to do the work that we do just in general, right? Is being able to be my whole complete self in doing this. And so just to give another example, I know that Terri-Ann put this up, the video of that we were able to do with actors and stuff like that to bring the research to life. That wasn't looked at like I was crazy. It's just like, these stories are just so real. And I was just like, what would it look like to put voice to these in a particular kind of way? And it was just welcomed. You know what I'm saying? And so I just think that having that energy amongst the folks that you're working with, I know it keeps my fire going, that I don't have to worry about putting that to the side, but I can actually have it in every area of work that I am doing. And I'm really proud of what we were able to create with that and the impact that was able to make. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's what keeps me going, is being my whole, full, true self and bringing that to everything that I do. That's important to me. Just like I came wearing my pink and green today because it's my Founders Day because I'm an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman. So any other AKAs in the chat, happy Founders Day. But I wasn't going to come to this today without my pearls and my pink and green. I'm just saying, all parts, all the time.
I love that. And happy Founders Day to you and all the women of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Cool. So we have another question. This participant asked if you can share an example of how SisterSong challenges the traditional research process, which we know embodies white supremacy and systemic racism, especially in collaborating with academic institutions.
I can give two quick examples from the Trust Black Women study. The first is to say that when we approached the research board, we approached them with a very narrow line of questioning, which is the research way. You are taught to narrow your question and to go in with we would like to test A, this is our hypothesis. And the research board immediately was like, nah, you are about to roll into talking to our community. What we want is a broad question that is just what is on your mind, what is top of mind, what is a concern for you. And that was a real challenge as a researcher going into the space to say, hold on, what? We could get a million things from that. And we did, but we were able to actually work our way through that. So that's the first thing I will say in terms of, just the question and asking, not the question, but the process. And then the second way in which I think SisterSong really challenged the research process is during the dissemination, when we were talking through as a team, as a group, as a partner, how and what we think is the priority. It was very clear that the video was the first priority, that let's talk about sex was the first place for that to be debuted. From a research perspective, that is not usually how our work goes. Our work is to try to get everything into the academic space because we are thinking, okay, advocates can now cite this work. Okay, legislators can now cite this work. And we had a similar process when we talked through sort of what types of data would be prioritized, what felt the most relevant to the community. Sex education is one of many things that came out of our study, yet it was what was prioritized by our community. So I think those are two quick examples of the ways in which our process in terms of research and research studies, because remember, that is how it was funded, were challenged from the bat.
Yeah, but I'll agree with that. With RIA, we're still in that process since the research is still going and we are still compiling our dissemination products. But I guess one example is that even, I think it was about a month ago, one of our first dissemination products from RIA is a podcast episode, which is a collaboration between our two of our community advisory board members and the SisterSong podcast. So that, was a really exciting example of how we could get our community advisory board members like actually out into the space even before we published anything or put anything into the peer-reviewed literature. And I'm really excited by that. And I'm excited by the collaborations that we're starting to build internally too, really focusing on creative methods and how we can leverage the creativity and the power in our comms team, in the bold colors you can even see in the backgrounds we have today, and all of the media that we put out, and thinking to Terri-Ann's point about how we can really put forward that piece of getting messages out there, in addition to presenting at conferences, which is we are still doing, and to putting things into the peer-reviewed literature and to giving interviews. And one of the reasons that we're doing even this seminar series is because this is something that we wanted to do, is make sure that research could be in this space, not just something that people had to log on to PubMed and read.
And if I can be a little forward thinking, I think that what we're also trying to do, and Noelle will probably give more to this as we get closer. For those who don't know, we have our national Let's Talk About Sex conference, which is the National Reproductive Justice Conference, and it's a time, but it's also a very important space for movement. Right. And so one of the things that we want to make sure that we do this year for all the researchers and those who love research in the room is to create a space specifically for researchers. Right. How are we bringing our folks together to be able to connect, to build, to strategize, to like really leave that space with like some clear things that we're going to be doing together. So just know that there are many different ways that we are trying to make sure that we are not only, presenting and giving, but we're also trying to curate very intentional spaces for more of this work to be done in collaboration, with each other. So just want to drop that note because registration is about to open for Let's Talk About Sex this year. It is happening in August. We're not going to tell you where we're going because you got to follow our Instagrams and things, but all of that's coming on Friday. So we just want to make sure y'all are in the building. But yes to that, but also creating a very intentional space for this work to continue to grow.
Yes. And please make sure you are following us on Instagram to stay updated for how we're gonna keep moving in movement. Yes. So another question, what were some mechanisms that you used to recruit during these studies? And this one was directed specifically for Cicely.
So Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation is an abortion provider. So we do have a clinic that is a part of our building. And so we were fortunate to be able to recruit participants in that space, providing a little bit of education to the folks who are providing direct care, to be able to talk with patients about what participating in the study might be, and for anyone who expressed interest. So that was one of our primary recruitment spaces. We did also go out into the community. We have partnerships with many organizations who are also doing reproductive justice work. And so being able to share recruitment materials with those organizations, have them share them with their bases, and then to take that information into the community and share it with our own bases were really the primary mechanisms for recruitment. Of course, we posted things on our social media and all of that as well.
I love that. Meeting people where they are, so important in movement. Cool. So our next question says, phenomenal panel. I am very curious about what it means to be in principled struggle as it pertains to research, justice, and the pursuit of reproductive justice, especially as funding is increasingly becoming precarious. Authoritarianism is on the rise and fighting the anti-woke agenda of this country. So, I guess reiterating that, what does it look like to be in principled struggle in this work and in this climate?
I mean, I'll just say this. We don't have a choice but to be in it how we need to be, right? I think that's number one. And you're right. Like, I think that when we look at how resources are being retracted and there's just all of the fear factors and all of the misinformation and all of the things that fascism and white supremacy and patriarchy and all these systems of oppression, just rain down on us, it can it can get really, really bleak. It can feel really hard. I think that um, now more than ever, though, I say all the time in spaces, our silos will not save us, right? We have no choice in this work but to figure out the ways that we can build together collectively. And so that means that we're going to have to be at tables sometimes with folks that we may not have everything on the list, right? That we can all check off together. But if we can all come together around common agendas, around common goals, around common outcomes, right? That we know that we need for our communities, that is what is necessary in these moments. I was talking to another colleague a few weeks ago because we were talking about culture shift work in particular and SisterSong really being steadfast and like this being a core strategy of our work. And one of the questions I got asked was, well, Monica, how do you know that, culture shift, works and that it can be evaluated and all these different things? Like, how do you know it's a thing that could actually make something happen? I was like, you want to know how culture shift works, how we know culture shift works? It works because we have the president that we have. They used every strategy to get to what they needed, right? And so our opposition has no issue being in principal struggle. They don't give a damn about each other, right? At the end of the day, they have a common agenda and a common goal. And if our agenda is liberation, if our agenda is to make sure that our people have what they need, if our agenda is human rights, if it is making sure that we have the ability to make our own decisions about our bodies and our families and our futures, and it is our duty to be in strong partnership, to find the ways that we're going to have to work through the challenges together, but to do that in a way that's going to get us closer to what those goals are. So I don't, as SisterSong, we don't shy away from principal struggle. Believe us, we have been in the thick of a lot of things over the years because we are convicted around making sure that our people have what they need and around making sure that we have reproductive justice by any means necessary, which means that we had to have ourselves in conversations and partner with some folks sometimes that required some rub and some challenge. But that is what makes us stronger. It's what builds our rigor. It's what builds us as a movement at the end of the day. You can't have a movement that ain't got no struggle in it. That ain't never happened in the course of history. Right. And so we can't be scared of that. We can't shy away from that. We got to step to that thing 10 toes down. Right. And realize that we all have a level of expertise. We all have a level of strategy. We all have we all got something, right, to bring to the table. And we got to all be at that table together in order to make sure we can create the best strategies to make the thing work. Right. So that's how I would answer the question. I don't know if it's directly answering the question, Nia, but those are things that were coming to mind for me is that we don't have a choice. There has been no movement in history, right, that has not had to deal with political struggle and discord. It just doesn't happen that way. Movements don't build without it. So we got to be willing to step to it.
Yeah, I definitely do think that.
And if I could just,
oh, no, you're fine.
Sorry, Nia, just if I could add one thing Monica made, it was just so powerful what you said. The other thing I would just put in the space for whoever put this question forward is please don't discount the small things, right? Because part of being in this struggle, part of being in this space at this particular moment in time is that dissent, even in the smallest way, is a way that you are in the struggle. And so if dissent for you looks like saying, no, I'm not about to be on that panel because it doesn't reflect what I believe in or what I represent, then that is in and of itself an action that you are taking. So please don't discredit the small things. Sometimes those small things are real painful and they do result in some consequences, like you might not, your career might not propel as quickly as it would, right? If you had said yes. But that dissent in and of itself is powerful. And so please don't discredit those small ways in which you can dissent.
Thank you both for your response to that question. This is going to be our final question of the panel. And hopefully I don't tongue twist this one up. But so just ending off on today's conversation, we have a chat full of individuals who are curious about where to find your work, where to find your products, how to get engaged with this work, and how to keep up with reproductive justice research. So where can people find you, your work, and stay connected to the work?
Okay, I guess I'll start us off. I know we all have things to plug. So thank you everyone for being here. Ways to follow our work. So our website for SisterSong is sistersong.net. Really easy. And then on social, we are sistersong_WOC. And then for our research, we are building out a new website right now. So it will all be linked on that website. Right now, though, it's a little bit all over the place with our partners. So actually the TBW work is housed on Ibis's site. If you search Trust Black Women Ibis, it comes up immediately, and then everything is very helpfully linked there. And then for the RIA study, which I was talking about, that is on the Urban Institute site. But as I said, in the next couple of months, that will all be coming together on the SisterSong site as well. And for this webinar, this will be posted on our YouTube in just a couple days, in case folks are curious about that too.
And the only thing to quickly add is that, Ibis Reproductive Health does a lot of work in principal partnerships with many other community organizations. So I do want to plug just our website in general for things both, broadly related to sexual and reproductive health, as well as things related to abortion, transgender and gender expansive care, as well as contraception. So ibisreproductivehealth.org. And I would be remiss if I did not say you should go to YouTube and find the SisterSong video, the Trust Black Women video, and make sure it's on your favorites list, and share it widely, please.
And for Free the Pill, it's freethepill.org. And our Instagram is free_the_pill. There are other socials as well, but I don't have those up. So thanks for following.
And for Feminist Center for Reproductive Liberation, we are at feministcenter.org online. And I believe that we are at Feminist Center on all of the socials, but I don't know that for sure. But our socials are definitely connected through our website. So you can always find us there.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I will again echo all of the statements that we have gotten in the Q&A and in the chat. This has been an absolutely amazing panel and conversation. Thank you to all who have contributed. Thank you all for just bringing your full selves to the conversation. Cannot wait to continue to follow and work with you all as we continue to move the movement. And thank you to everyone who decided to take time out in the middle of their Thursday to join and participate in this webinar. This is the first one of the year, but not the last, so slight plug. We hope to see you on our next conversation and in community and at LTAS 2026. So y'all make sure y'all stay connected, follow those socials. Thank you so much for joining us today, and until next time.
Thanks, everyone.
And thank you, Nea, for being an amazing host and moderator. You're so dope. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, SisterSong.
Yay! Y'all so dope.
Yeah.
That was so good, y'all.